Hello everyone and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. Formula 2 returned to Spa this weekend for round number 9 of the Formula 2 season. It's going quick, isn't it? Chris McCarthy with me for... no, not Chris McCarthy. Alex Brundle with... No, not Alex Brundle either. Aaron Harper and Martin Lloyd with me to reflect on this one. Do you like the reference there, guys? Do you like the reference? Aaron, obviously lots to talk about. It wasn't Alex Dunn who got the win. It wasn't Arvid Lindblad. It was Roman Stanek with the win. We're going to get onto all of that shortly. But Spa, a classic track. I know it was the first race that you watched in Formula One all the way back in the 1930s or whatever it was. So, nice to be back at Spa.
It's always great to see cars go racing at Spa. It's a fantastic circuit. The weather is absolutely unpredictable. You're correct. My first Grand Prix that I watched was at Spa, the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix. So that was quite an introduction for anyone who has seen the highlights. If you haven't seen the highlights, where have you been?
Check out.
But yeah, I mean, it's always a circuit that provides good racing for Formula 2 cars, and it's a real challenge for drivers. It's a driver's circuit as well. Some of those corners in the middle sector really give the opportunity for these drivers to express themselves and have a bit of fun, don't they? The corners like Pouhon and Blanchimont, they're real thrill corners, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I do have to say, Eau Rouge, Radion, Pouhon is probably my favourite corner in Formula One. That's maybe a little bit of an underrated opinion, but I love that downhill left-hander. Martin, the thing is as well, when we go to Spa, always a bit of rain in the air, isn't there? It definitely spiced up the weekend this weekend.
Yeah, it's certainly not something that we've lacked in the last 2 weekends of Formula 2 at Spa and Silverstone. And I think it really adds that different dimension, like you say, especially at Spa. It's not like when it rains every once in a while at Monaco and the whole track is drenched. At Spa, you might have rain in Sector 1, but you're not going to have rain in Sector 2. And it really gives the teams such a different challenge. And we didn't have this weekend, but when you're going to pit for dries, when you're going to pit for wet, and it makes it really interesting. And it really, like I say, added that new element on Sunday. I think Spa in the wet is, for me, if I was a driver, it would be one of those challenges that you really want to take at some point in your racing career, because it's something you can say, yeah, I've ticked that off, I've done that. And, well, for some drivers, they've won there now.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about those very shortly. And I know you guys have both been on the press conferences this weekend, so looking forward to hearing your inside knowledge and your insights. As I said, we're going to be talking about Leo Fornaroli's sprint race win. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some other standout performances from the weekend. But first of all, so we start with the feature race because, oh my goodness, A, what a race, unbelievable. But B, obviously the things that happened post-race. Alex Dunn, obviously, he won the race on the road in changeable conditions. An outstanding drive and a proper good move. We were talking about Pouhon, weren't we? But what a move around the outside of Oligurtha on his way to win that race. Only for him to be given a 10-second time penalty. And he fell back to 9th after that, where we finished under the safety car. Arvid Lindblad inherited the win. 40 inherited the win for all of about, 20 minutes, chaps? It wasn't very long, was it? And then he was disqualified from the race. Roman Stanek, the eventual race winner. But I want to talk about Alex Dunn first. And we can kick off with a fan question. So Summer asks, what exactly does breach of start procedure mean? Martin, we'll come to you first. In fact, can we touch on Alex Dunn's performance as well? Because I do think it is worth mentioning. He was brilliant this weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, I absolutely want to start with Alex Dunn's performance because I think it's one of the most impressive weekends we've seen in Formula 2 in the last couple of years. Starting qualifying, he had 4 tenths on the field after the first runs. Not too bad, but there's a second run coming. If he makes a little mistake, then he could start 11th with the way that the track evolution is at that point in the weekend. But then he does the second run and he's 4 tenths clear again. And the guy just has that margin over the rest of the field. It was quite incredible to watch because with the way that the cars are all to specification, the drivers, as we know, are all of a high caliber. You really don't see that margin very often. Maybe you might get 2, maybe 3 tenths on a rare weekend, but 4 tenths as a pole margin is something else. And then you get to Sunday in the feature race. It was measured, it was calm. There were very there was very little in the way of mistakes when there was action all around him in terms of drivers spinning, including Ritomo Miata, who was in second place behind him. But Alex was as calm as he could be. And then we had the summons just after the end of the race for his startup procedure not being activated. Now, if we look at the F2 document that was released, the FIA have said that the defined setup procedure activation is mandatory for the start of the formation lap and the start of the race. Now, this means that this is how the car is set up. It's unclear, as with a lot of the technical regulations, if there's any advantage in not setting up, but it was actually quite clear in the steward's document that Rodin, after hearing that the formation lap would be behind the safety car and the start of the race would be a rolling start, actively decided not to activate that setup procedure. So it wasn't like it was a car fault. It wasn't like it was a mistake in the systems. It was just that Rodin thought, oh, it's not going to be a standing start, and so we don't need to activate that setup procedure. The driver, Alex Dunn, said he'd asked the team for confirmation. The team told him not to engage it, and so it's very much not his fault, but it's a clear breach of the regulations. And unfortunately, when that sort of thing happens, we saw the same thing at Silverstone with Tisanopoulos and Trapuvizak in Formula 3, a 10-second penalty is applied. So it's extremely unfair on Alex Dunn. There was a poll that Feeder Series put out yesterday, and I picked out 3 drivers of the weekend. And Alex Dunn wasn't on there because, of course, he had that win taken away from him. And got a fair bit of heat, so I'd like to apologise to our social managers for that one. I do think Alex Dunn was, of course, the best driver this weekend, and it was just unfortunate for him that his team made that incorrect call.
Yeah, it's a real shame because it was an unbelievable weekend from him. As you said, starting in qualifying, 4 attempts in what has been the tightest or the smallest qualifying gap between first and second all year it was in Formula 2 history, isn't it? It's just it's unbelievably close. So to pull 4 attempts is a great lap and a great couple of laps and a great feature race for him on Sunday as well. Such a shame. Aaron, Dara Payton 4805 on our Discord channel. Oh, that might be our YouTube actually. Says, how can the FIA wait a whole race to issue a penalty? And I know that a lot of Alex Dunn fans, I think they're unhappy about the fact that the penalty was given such a long time after the race. Is that something that potentially could have been given during the race and serve that penalty in the race so then he could make up those positions? Obviously, the issue is that the race finished under the safety car, which meant that he dropped a long way down the order, which if the race hadn't have finished under safety car, he wouldn't have fallen so far back. He might have fallen back to maybe 4th. I don't know what it was, but could that penalty have been given sooner during the race or not?
I mean, possibly, because we've seen drivers serve penalties at pit stops. So let's say it's given on lap 3 or 4, and then they stop for the change of wet tyres midway through the race. Alex could have served the penalty then and carried on his way. But to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and without a huge amount of knowledge in terms of the requirements from the stewards in sort of dealing with this, maybe they needed a little bit more information from the team. Maybe they wanted that confirmation that it wasn't a car fault and they couldn't get hold of that information until the car had come back and they could check the telemetry, because they'll have access to all of it. Anything they want will be at their disposal. They'll have all the radio communications. So they might have just wanted to make sure that the penalty was justified before handing it out. I don't disagree that penalties post-race are infuriating, because especially when they finish behind the safety car, because they just feel so much more painful. And Alex Dunn didn't deserve to finish in what was eventually 9th position. That said, had he served the penalty in the race, he almost certainly wouldn't have won. So I don't want to sound cruel, but also in that sense, because he's broken the rules, the penalty is fair. So, yeah, I'm not sure the end result fitted the crime, but the penalty was justified in that sense. So, yes, very disappointing that the penalty took so long to come. It could have come in race potentially, but I don't know if that was at the steward's disposal. So, that's a kind of a non-answer on that, unfortunately. But I suppose that's what we are sort of looking at as fans and as journalists. We're looking at why these things happen. Can they be done more effectively? But we'd have to ask the stewards about that.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if we're going to get the opportunity to do that, to be fair. But yeah. Okay, moving on then. Obviously, Alex Dunn lost the win. Arvid Lindblad inherited the win and then was disqualified about 20 minutes later, as we said, for his tyre pressures being below the limit defined by Pirelli. And we've got a question on the Discord that is linked to that. So Estan Bestan, I think that's how you pronounce the username, says, how does the team manage to get the tyre pressure wrong? And Martin, I don't know whether that's something you've had the chance to have a look into, but it seems like the... is that a team thing? Are the team potentially, is that something that they have made a mistake on, or is that something that has happened during the race, for example?
So again, let's go into those documents. The stewards talk about the tyre pressure measurement data that's been provided by the technical delegate, and it shows that all four of those tyres are around 0.3 or 0.4 away from the set minimum limits that the tyre pressures need to be. The checks were done post-race, so it is potentially something that could have happened during the race. But I think it's also important to say that teams know what those end tyre pressures are meant to be. Campos have been in Formula 2 for a long time, and they know what the level of degradation, not just in terms of the tyre wear, but the level of depreciation, of the tyre pressures during the race. Perhaps they got that slightly wrong. Perhaps there was a car issue that meant the tyre pressures were lower than they were thought to be. Perhaps the degradation was higher than they thought it was going to be, or perhaps the tyres were too cool, and it just caused that very, very slight, as I say, depreciation. To give the numbers, the minimum front tyre pressure was 16 psi, and the front left was 15.74, the front right 15.61, and the rears were similar levels below the limit of 14 psi. So it's a very tight discrepancy that there was, but it was a clear discrepancy. Campos acknowledged their fault, and unfortunately, in a similar way to the Alex Dunn penalty, when you have an issue like that come up with your car, there's going to be a big penalty because it is very clearly and firmly against the technical regulations. I think we had F1 disqualifications for it earlier this season as well. So it's really, again, I feel like I'm echoing what Aaron said. It's very, very harsh on Lindblad. He drove a good race. Okay, he didn't deserve to win. Dunn did, but certainly those 18 and 25 points that he lost because of that penalty, it's had a really big impact on him. And it's often with these penalties, it's not fair on the driver, but motor racing is a team sport, and if you don't adhere to those regulations, even if they're trying to just make sure that the tyres reach the minimum by the end of the race, and if they made that mistake, then that's unfortunately the result of what comes from that. And I mean, finally, I had to do three rewrites on Sunday. Won't someone think of the journalists at the end of all this, please?
What might have been interesting in a parallel universe is if the race doesn't finish behind the safety car and they go green flag all the way to the end, would Lindblad have been clear, or would he have still had the same issue? We'll never know, but there is an argument to say all those laps behind the safety car, the tyre pressures dropped and they dropped too low. So by the time he got back, they were too low. So, yeah, I mean, it's like you say, Martin, it's a clear breach. So the penalty is justified, but it's incredibly harsh on Lindblad, who, like you say, drove a fantastic race.
Yeah, really tough on Arvid Lindblad, and that's really cost him in the championship as well, which we'll come back to because I want to talk about the championship in a bit. But after all of that, it meant that the eventual race winner was Roman Stanek, who obviously finished third on the road. A great weekend for him, though. I wanted to highlight. I was actually going to highlight him anyway when I was sat there on Sunday, and he'd come third, and he's qualified third as well. He's now the fourth highest average qualifier this season, and he's only been outside the top 10 on 2 separate occasions. So I think Roman Stanek is quietly going about his business this season. Hasn't quite got the points to match his good qualifying on a Friday. But yeah, another good weekend. I'd actually go as far as saying probably his best weekend in Formula 2, Aaron. Is that fair to say?
I'd completely agree, not only because he won the race, but I think that was his most complete weekend that he's put together. And when I spoke to his team boss, James Robinson, in Silverstone, he said, it's about turning theory into practice for Roman and delivering on the potential that's there, because he believes he can fight at the front week in, week out. He qualified 4th in Silverstone, drove a good race. I got a 3rd place in the sprint as well. Got a decent feature race, although he did spin having put on slicks. Then this weekend, top 3, got himself a really nice starting position for the feature race and drove a really good feature race as well. At one point, he was going for the lead against Alex Dunn. Would have been mighty interesting to see that on-track battle unfold with Stanek in front and Dunn, who was clearly faster, trying to find a way through. That would have been fascinating. So I think Roman's putting it all together now. It's starting to come together. Obviously, he picked up his first podium of the season in Austria, and now he's got podiums at each of the next 2 rounds, and it's culminated in a feature race win. What would be awful is for that to just sort of now amount to nothing and for it all to fall off the other side. And this is like the peak, and then it's just a cliff edge. And I really hope it's not, because I think what we're seeing from Roman now that he's at Invicta, he's really finding himself. I think he's been sort of pushed out of his comfort zone a little bit, because he lives in Italy. He was spending a lot of time with Trident, Italian environment, and now coming to an English team, he's having to adapt, and it's just pushing him to another level, I think. And I think we're seeing a real sort of blossoming of a young talent here, which is always great to see. And I think, however you slice it, he did inherit the win, but you've got to be in it to win it, and the other 2 fell foul of the rules, and Roman scoops up the pieces.
As I said, I still think, regardless, even if he finished 3rd like he did on the road, I still think it's his best weekend in Formula 2. So really, really good for Roman Stanek. We're actually sitting down with him tomorrow to have a chat with him about his first feature race win and about the Spa weekend in general and the season so far. So keep an eye out on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast. Keep an eye out, because the Roman Stanek interview will be coming very soon. By the way, who had Roman Stanek, Ritomo Miata, and a Luke Brown in top 3 podium? Anyone? Because if you did, I want to know next week's lottery numbers, because what an unbelievable podium. We're gonna come back round to that, but I want to talk about Roman Stanek's teammate, because it was a double Invicta win this weekend, wasn't it? Leo Fornaroli also picked up the win in the sprint race, and Martin, a really, really good performance by Leo Fornaroli, who waited a long time to get his first win a few weekends ago at Silverstone, and then 2 come along at once. The second one comes straight off the back of that, and he obviously won the sprint race at Spa. Not bad races to win, Silverstone and Spa, no?
Yeah, I think if you're going to pick 2 at the start of the season, those 2 are going to be right up there for him. But the real story of Fornaroli's season, it was a good season even without the wins. But he won at Silverstone in the sprint. He wins at Spa in the sprint, gets the fastest lap for good measure. But he also came 2nd in the feature race at Spielberg. He came 5th after the penalties were applied at Spa. He came 6th with a late charge at Silverstone. He was 5th in Monaco, 5th at Imola, 4th at Jeddah. You're seeing a pattern here, I hope, where we've got a driver who really, really rarely fails to score. The only non-scores that Leo Fornaroli has had in this entire season was in the Barcelona feature race, where he firstly had a very early stop-go penalty for an infringement where the tyres weren't fitted ahead of the 3-minute rule, I believe, and then the sprint race in Spielberg, where he was involved in that incident towards the end of the race. That is it. Okay, he scored 1 point in the sprint in Sakir, 2 in Jeddah, 2 in Imola, 2 at Monaco. These all add up, and this is now a driver who has scored 8 points or more in each of his last 5 races, including sprints. He has only taken the championship lead now, but he is far more consistent, or has been far more consistent in the last few rounds than every other driver. And as I think I've said before on this podcast, if you're going to win the F2 championship, you can't just pick up 3 wins in 3 feature races and hope that you can pick up enough points the rest of the season when you're not as dominant. Fornaroli, perhaps aided by that F3 campaign last year where he didn't win a single race, has really got it down to an art form of, yeah, that's fine, I'll finish 5th, I'll finish 6th, that's okay. And he kept chipping away at that championship lead. Okay, Dunn would be in the championship lead if he hadn't been disqualified, but let's be honest, we're not going to think about that in 4 months' time in Abu Dhabi.
No.
Fornaroli's got the lead now, and you've got to say he's one of the favourites for the championship with the form that he's shown recently and throughout the season.
12 points, Aaron, separating Fornaroli, Verschoor, Crawford, Dunn, Browning. 12 points after 9 rounds is the closest the Formula 2 Championship has ever been, and any one of those drivers could win it now, right? They could go on to win the championship.
Absolutely. I mean, I know he got disqualified from the feature race on Sunday, but Lindblad has the speed to get himself back into contention. If he rattles off a couple of feature race wins and the top 5 remain as sort of outside of Fornaroli, as wildly inconsistent from round to round as they are, there's no reason why Lindblad can't get himself back into that mix. It's going to take some doing, considering what's just happened. But, it's 12 points after, what's that, 18 races? That's absolutely insane. And it's just why we love Formula 2, isn't it? It's arguably the best racing series on the planet, because you turn up at a weekend and you just don't know. There are no predictions. There is just great racing. Alex Jakes, Great Britain 2025.
Yeah. Richard Verschoor, Jack Crawford, tough weekends for them, Aaron. It was, really, really difficult for them. As you say, there were just rounds. I mean, Verschoor had the same in Imola, didn't he? Where he just had a really tough round, didn't qualify well. Qualifying wasn't quite as bad this time, but still not a great qualifying outside the top 10. Jack Crawford has had rounds this season as well, where he, Jeddah, for example, and earlier on in the season, he struggled a little bit. Two drivers who are second or third year drivers, 4th year driver for Richard Verschoor. Is that a little bit disappointing for them, the fact that they haven't been as consistent as perhaps some of the rookies?
It's an interesting question. I'm just looking at Verschoor's scoring chart across the season. So after each of his feature race wins, he's not scored particularly heavily in the next 2 rounds. So he won Jeddah, then scored 6 points across Imola and Monaco. He won Spielberg and has then scored 8 points across Silverstone and Spa. So
he's due a win then.
He's due a win. And Crawford had been on really good form before that. And I think I think there's 2 things here. You get punished really heavily for not qualifying well. So I know Spa is a circuit where you can get some overtakes done with some DRS, but starting that far back where those 2 did in the feature race, in the wall of spray, it was very difficult to make any sort of progress. And there wasn't a transition to slicks. It was just stick on another set of wets. And I think Crawford had a few adventures as well. So qualifying, really important. But also, it just goes to show how competitive Formula 2 is, because you can be riding high one week. So Crawford was unbelievable in the rain at Silverstone. And you come to Spa, he's qualified outside the top 10, nowhere in the sprint because of a collision on lap 1, nowhere in the feature race, can't get any points on the board. It just swings so aggressively, that momentum, doesn't it? It's unbelievable. And I don't think it's because Richard Verschoor or Jack Crawford are bad drivers. They've shown completely the opposite on several occasions this season. So it's not that they're no good. It's just that everybody else is also very good. So it's really competitive. You have to nail every weekend, and you have to take the most from it. So it's just why we love Formula 2, because it just changes literally every race. It's amazing.
Definitely. DR3_Jack on Discord asks, would Alex Dunn have been in prime position to win the championship if he hadn't been disqualified? I guess that's in relation to his speed, because we've said so many times that his speed There's been weekends that we've rocked up. Bahrain, definitely Spa this weekend. There's been a couple of rounds in between that he's probably looked like the quickest driver by a decent amount, particularly in the feature race on Sunday. So, do you think he would have? He's still got a genuine shot at the title, Martin? In fact, let me spin that question. Who is your favourite for the title right now?
Okay, now you're getting me, because I was all prepared to give a nice detailed answer, and now I've got to pick someone. Firstly, on Dunn, is he the favourite? Yes and no. Yes, he's looked like the fastest driver so far this season, and he's been able to put together that completely dominating pace, both in qualifying and the races, which is an important factor because some drivers can do one and not the other. He's been able to put together that completely dominating pace a lot more often than any other driver. But we've also seen, okay, a little bit less than the last few rounds, that he has got an incident in him just because of his rawness as a driver. And so I think that should still be picked up as a factor. Jack Crawford and Richard Vachon just spoken about, so I won't go too deep into them. But what I will say is, he didn't score at all this weekend, but Jack Crawford has scored 15 points in every single, at least 15 points in every single F2 round this season, bar Melbourne, Sakir and Spa. So every single one of the 6 intervening rounds, Jack Crawford picked up at least 15 points, and that's why he's in championship contention. I think he's looked more consistent perhaps than Vachon has, but Vachon is the only driver other than Dunn that I think can just sweep the field away, or that we've seen so far. Leo's got that consistent.
I'm going to have to push you for an answer, Martin. You're really stalling here. You are really stalling.
I'm gonna.
Those splinters must be hurting on that fence.
I'm going to go with Alex because I think he's the fastest, and I think we're losing those instants. But I think Luke Browning is a very, very dark horse who is about to come very good. And that's all I'll say until he wins on Sunday.
I was going to say, he needs a race win, doesn't he? He needs a race win in order to be in championship contention. So, okay, interesting. Aaron, really quickly, because we've got a couple more questions from the fans. Who is your favourite from here of those? I say of those top 5. I know you said Arvid Lindblad is still in contention. I agree that he has the pace, but I think he is out of contention now. I think he's just a little bit too far back. If you're counting Arvid Lindblad in, Pepe Marti's now ahead of him in the standings. I think you've then got to count Pepe Marti. I can't see anyone outside of those top 5 winning the championship now. So you might be about to tell me Arvid Lindblad or Pepe Marti. But who is your favourite for the title with 5 rounds to go?
So right now it's Leonardo Fornaroli because he's leading the way. That the stats tell you that. But frankly, it's wide open. There is no favourite because it just changes so quickly. And it changes from day to day within a race weekend. Like you can be 4/10 clear of the field on Friday. You can have a rubbish sprint race where everything goes wrong. And then you can dominate the feature race, win by 10 seconds. And then you can turn up at the next race weekend and qualify 20th. It's just unbelievable. It's just, it's so wide open. I agree that Luke Browning needs a win. Alex Dunn has the pace, and so does Richard Vachon. They can just blitz everybody. Crawford and Fornaroli are probably a little bit more steady in their point scoring. So you've got so many factors in play. I mean, let's not pick favourites. Let's just sit back and enjoy it.
I think that's good. I think that's good advice because it is going to be unbelievable from
even
now
more
until the
on
end of the
fence than
season.
me, Aaron. Come on.
That is true.
I am the fence.
I definitely think that Jack on Discord is going to prefer your answer, Martin, to Aaron's because I think Jack is an Alex Dunn fan. So by the way, Grumpy Gamer on Discord, I haven't checked this, but said that there are 43 points lost to disqualifications and penalties so far this season for Alex Dunn. So it could have been very, very different for the Irishman if he hadn't had those disqualifications and penalties. By the way, good time to plug our Discord channel. As you can see, loads of people getting involved in the conversation, asking questions for the podcast. We have the opportunity for you guys to submit your questions to the podcast. So go and join our Discord channel if you aren't involved already. We're talking throughout the race weekend and discussing some of these topics as we go through. I want to loop it back round, guys, because I do want to highlight a couple of drivers that deserve a shout out this weekend. Ritomo Miata, first podium in Formula 2. And there was someone else I wanted to talk about. Who was it? Who came third in the feature race? It was Luke Browning, wasn't it? Someone else I wanted to highlight. Henri Cordil was someone I wanted to highlight because he was... I know he obviously had the incident with Victor Martins in the sprint race, but up until that point, he was genuinely competing for at least the podium. And I thought it was quite impressive for Henri Cordil. So, just a word on both of those drivers. Aaron, I'll come to you first on that one. Mainly Ritomo Miata. Good weekend for him, right?
Yeah, really positive for Ritomo because there was a lot of hype after his Super Formula Championship when he joined Formula 2, and it didn't quite work out last year. And it's been much the same story this year. He's found it really tough. But the speed's clearly there. You're not a slow driver just overnight. I don't quite know what it is, but really positive to see him qualify on the front row. Yes, he had the spin in the race, but I actually thought in the feature race he looked really good. And I was like, well, maybe, you know what they say about British drivers learning to kart and their early years in the British climate where you don't really know what the weather's going to do. It could be sunny and 30 degrees or it could pour down with rain. You can get both in the same day. But also they get that in Japan. When it rains, it really rains. If you just go and watch Fuji 2007 and Lewis Hamilton, an unbelievable drive. But you get some conditions like that in Japan. So I thought actually he looked really comfortable in those conditions, which was really positive to see. So hopefully this is a step forward for Ritomo. And again, positive for Henri Cordil. He's had some moments this season where he's looked like he's getting towards the front and competing at the sharp end. And yes, he didn't get the result on Saturday. The collision with Victor Martins was really unfortunate, but really positive to see his speed was there. And I think that goes to show the wider sort of road in confidence that they're able to put two cars at the front and compete.
Yeah, definitely. Martin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just think with Ritomo, it's been, as you say, Aaron, he had a lot of hype. He was a Super Formula champion. He was a Super GT champion. And it feels like we've been expecting things from him for a long time. He's had Formula One tests. And there is a level that I think we know he can get to. And I, from a fan's perspective, less than journalist's perspective, was really pleased to see him up there this weekend. Because whether he has always shown it in Formula 2, we know realistically the guy is one of the best drivers in the field. Given his record, his palmarès, as they'd say in cycling, as the Tour de France has just finished. And I think that it's a matter of time, hopefully, before he can show that speed more often. I think, similar to Aaron's point on Rodin, it was great for ART to have two cars at the front of the field. They've not had that for quite a long time. Let's not forget they were the team's champions just a couple of years ago. And I think it was a really positive weekend for them in terms of race pace on the whole, even if Victor Martins didn't get the Sunday result.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, that is all we got time for today. But before we go, let's take a look at the championship standings. Leo Fornaroli leads the way on 125 points. He's the new championship leader ahead of Richard Verschoor and Jack Crawford. Alex Dunn, obviously without disqualification, 114 points for him, down in fourth place, but he'll still fancy himself to win the title. Luke Browning rounds out the top five. And the team standings. Invicta lead the way on 182 points, followed by Campos and Hitech. Difficult weekend for Dams Lucas Oil, no points in total this weekend, but they're still sit fourth in the championship. And MP Motorsport round out the top five. Okay, that's all we got time for today. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you give it a like, subscribe for more Formula 2 content. As we said, we may well have a Roman Stanek interview coming your way, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.